Hi, my name is Carolyn, and this is your introduction to jelly plate printing. The very first and most important thing to deal with is cleaning the plate. I know your plate is clean right now, but this is of the utmost importance. So I'm showing you a dirty plate, and I'm cleaning it by putting more paint on it to pull a print that will pull all the paint off. That is how you clean the plate. Do not run with your plate to the kitchen sink and run the acrylic paint down the sink. Acrylic is a plastic. It will pollute our environment, turn into little microplastic bits, and it'll also clog your drain. If you're going to use acrylic paint and pursue a hobby in jelly printing, you need to investigate a way to deal with acrylic paint waste. So some kind of dispensing system. There are many on the market. Ask at your art store, research online. To clean the top of the plate, which was actually clean, it didn't have a lot of paint on it. I can clean the little bits of plastic off the plate with Huggies. They work really well. And that you don't have to get near a tap or anything to do it. You can throw the Huggies in the garbage. But Huggies are expensive. So if you prefer, you could just use a spray bottle and a paper towel. The Huggies are a little soapier, so probably clean a little bit better. Paper towel pills a little bit, but they both work. And that's how you clean your plate. Here you can see that I've taken an optician's bottle and filled it with a little bit of water. Then I use a paper towel. I use shop towels to clean the plate. This works the same way as the Huggies. You just wet the plate, and that allows the paper to slide. It softens the acrylic paint a little bit, and you can clean it off. I'm not actually cleaning the black paint off. You're seeing that through the plate. We're picking the black paint off with a print. But on this side, I have just little smudges, little ghosts, little bits of acrylic paint that are left, and that's how I clean them up. And you'll see that in process as we go. Okay, now let's have a look at how we clean that completely dirty plate. So as you saw, I rolled it with that turquoise paint. The wet paint dries onto the already dry paint on the plate and fuses with it, and then it comes off the plate as a unit. You can see how absolutely clean the plate is. You can see my fingers right through it. So that's the turquoise paint picking off the black paint, and that's how you clean the plate. It's so counterintuitive, I know, but I would like to reiterate, do not run your jelly plate under the tap into the drain. This is how you clean the plate. Whether your plate is small or big, clean it like this. It all takes a little patience, but actually it's a lot easier than getting the acrylic paint off under the tap. We've all made the mistake of doing it once. You can see that on this side of the plate, actually it's on the other side of the plate, you can see writing. That writing is left over from an attempt to make a transfer, and the toner from the magazine stuck onto the plate. So for that, I'm going to use baby oil. Here I'm finishing off that side with Huggies, and let's get some baby oil out, and I'll show you how that ghost from the magazine transfer can be washed off the plate. Some people talk about using baby oil to tone the plate. I don't really get that. I don't find that these jelly plates need any kind of toning or conditioning or anything like that. I mean, mine seems to work in all conditions. But oil for sure helps get oily substances off the plate. So if you use wax resists or pastels and some of that sticks to the plate, then baby oil will help to get it off. So that's what it's good for. All right, let's get started with some printing. First, let's have a look at paint. I've used every kind of paint there is, and they all work. I would suggest, especially while you're first learning, that you keep using the same kind of paint, because all the paints have a different ratio of pigment and medium. Some of them are thicker, some of them are thinner, some of them are fluid, some of them are pasty. Some of them are higher grade, some of them are lower grade, some of them are opaque, some of them are transparent. This jelly plate printing is hard enough to learn, so I strongly advise that you use the same paints, especially in the beginning when you're learning, so that you get used to the consistency of the paint you've got and don't have to deal with all the variables introduced by using different kinds of paint. I'm just showing you here that every kind of paint shows you how opaque or transparent it is. They all have their own kind of legend, but here on this one there's a solid square plus plus plus, so that's very opaque, and a diagonal square plus 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 meant very transparent. All right, Brayers. So this is a printmaking process, and it utilizes printmaking materials, and Brayers, of course, have always been used to spread the ink onto the plate in printmaking. Brayers come in different sizes. The black one at the bottom is 4 inches. The next one up is 2 inches. And the biggest one at the top, the turquoise one, is 6 inches. And you would use them for different reasons. You would use a 2-inch one if you're trying to fill in a particularly small area of stencil. On the regular, I usually choose to use for my 8 by 10 inch plate the 6-inch brayer. I'm just showing you that the roller comes out of the brayer holder for cleaning. Acrylic paint gets stuck in there like printing ink does not really. So, jelly printing presents particular problems. You can scrape the acrylic paint off the holder with an X-Acto knife or with a knife. You can also soak them in little Tupperware overnight, and then the acrylic paint will soften and you can peel it right off. And when you peel it off, throw the acrylic paint into the landfill garbage and put your water that you have left over from it into your acrylic disposal system, not through the drain, because there's little microscopic bits of plastic in that water. You want to make sure that your brayer has a rubber core. Some have wooden cores, and we don't want that for jelly printing because you'll need to soak the brayer sometimes to get it to clean, and then of course the wood will swell. Okay, let's talk paper. So for practicing purposes, let's just use plain old bond paper. It suffices. We'll talk about different kinds of paper later in other lessons. I also have some 140-pound cardstock handy, which is a little harder. Alrighty, here we go. You can see in my setup here I have my brayers off to my dominant hand side, and beside that I have a magazine on which I'm going to roll my brayers. I have my spray bottle handy, I have some tape handy, I'm choosing which brayer I'm going to use, and off we go. So we're going to put a little bit of paint onto the plate. Look how little paint you need. About as much as you can fit onto a dime. Not more. This will amply cover the plate. I'm holding the brayer very lightly and letting it roll with the paint and covering the plate with a nice even coat of thin paint. It's quite wet enough. Now I'm pushing harder, and you can see when I push harder I get these little lines, and people do ask that in the jelly plate printing group. How come I'm getting the lines? It's because you're pushing too hard. So you're creating an edge along the edge of the brayer. Just let the brayer roll with the weight of the brayer very lightly. Roll it off to the right. Turn your brayer upside down so that it doesn't dry onto that paper and stick to it. And now we're going to take a little piece of bond paper, and just put it right over top, and we're going to lightly iron it on. And if we have too much paint on there, the paper is going to start buckling right away and bubbling. This is plenty of paint. The paper, bond paper, is very light. It will buckle a little bit anyway. I'll show you where that's happening near the top. And the ideal situation is that you have so little paint that you have enough to make color, but not so much that it wets the fibers of the paper. So that's the first balance that you'll want to learn, is how much paint to use, considering the kind of paint you have and the paper. I'm putting my knuckles down to feel how cool the paper is so I can feel if it's still wet. I want to wait until it's dry enough to separate the paper and the paint from the plate, and you can see here how nicely that's happening. The paper has fused with the paint and it's lifting it all up off the plate. Beautiful print. That's what you want. And look, no marks on there, no bubbles. Lovely. Plate's clean. That's how it's done. So just practice that until you've got it. When you can do that, you've got the right amount of paint and the right amount of waiting time for your paper and your paint and your humidity, the temperature outside. Okay, we're going to put a second layer on, and I'll show you masking. This is very opaque. See the solid square and the 3 pluses? So again, I'm just holding the brayer, letting the weight of the brayer move the paint. Now, look, when the paint's first thick, look how it whiskers. You can see the whiskering of the paint. That's what I call it. It's got like little raised bits, almost like you're trying to roll peanut butter. You want to roll it out until it's perfectly smooth, until it's so thin that it's very, very smooth and opaque like that. And you can roll it off onto the side and then come at the plate again if there's too much paint on it. Now I'm going to mask off some of this turquoise so that when I put my pink paper back on it, it will mask the turquoise from the pink, and I will get what color shapes? Think about it. That's how you have to think for jelly printing. Think about it because it's very confusing. What color will the shapes be? The shapes will be pink, right? Because they're blocking the turquoise paint from the pink paper. This is one of the hardest things in jelly printing to get at first in terms of designing, is what's going to show. Plus, now we're inverting the paper on, right? So what's on our left is going to be on the right of the print. So designing is tricky. So think as you're going, take your time, try to be observant of what's happening. In this process, I'm literally printing. We're not really lifting, we're not really stamping, we're literally just printing that paint onto the paper. Some of it will still be left on the plate, and the masks that I've cut from just simple office file folders are masking the paint from the paper. It doesn't matter how long I leave it on really at all, as long as I've printed that paint onto the paper. And I did get a nice lift there, so that's good. And when I take these masks off, there might be some paint underneath. We call that ghosting, or we call that ghosts. And usually you want to use the ghosts. The ghosts make a nice texture aspect and color aspect to jelly printing. So it's a desirable thing to have these little ghosts left on your plate. Use them. For the next layer, I'm going to choose a more transparent paint, just for demonstration purposes, so you can see the lovely effect you can get by using transparent paints. Once again, I'm only going to put as much paint on as fits on the top of a dime. Once again, I'm holding the brayer very lightly and I'm letting the weight of the brayer move the paint. Now, if you have too much paint, actually, it's quite difficult for the brayer weight to move the paint. So that's one way you know you have too much paint. Also, it's whiskering. So if you have too much paint, just take a piece of the bond paper, put it over the plate, lift some off, and then continue to roll. You can see how thin this paint is. My hands are visible through it. And I'm going to use the same principle as before and mask the color. Watch me put my fingers in the bottom corner and the top corner of the print and then match them up to the Gelli plate, because obviously that diagonal is going to make sure that my print lands in exactly the right spot all the way around, right? So it's kind of a nice strategy to loosely match up your print. We'll look at other registration methods in later videos, but this suffices for now. And again, I'm just pushing my hands into the negative spaces between the mask. I'm just printing, I'm just transferring color to the paper, not worried about lifting anything up. And let's see what we've got. Oh, it did clean the paper again. That played again rather nicely. And that's a fun print. So there you can see the transparent darker blue over the pink and the lighter blue. And you can see it off to the side as well. See how transparent that darker blue is. So that's kind of fun. Okay, when we take the masks off the plate, you can see that we have a pretty nice ghost effect left from the masks with the blue. And, you know, when we're seeing that there, we notice, oh, that might be kind of fun just to pick that up. So I'm going to choose a transparent yellow and just pick up that ghost off the plate. Not too much paint. Here we go again, lightly with the brayer. And this time I'm not going to mask it at all. I'm going to put my paper down just on the yellow paint because I want to pick up the ghost. So this time I want to make sure I pick up the ghost. So I'm not just printing, I'm peeling everything off the plate because I want that ghost to show up on top of the yellow paint. It's underneath it now because it's against the plate, but it's going to be on top of it. And you'll see that in a minute when I turn the plate over and look at the design I'm going to get. Ta-da! So for a peel, I'm going to want to wait 5 minutes for the whole thing to dry. Now I'm taking a peek and let's see. Look, you can see it's not ready yet. The paint is still stuck to the Gelli plate. That means it's not all on the paper. That means it's not dry. I'm turning it over because the paper will dry better when it's on top, right, exposed to the air. But I'm going to wait another 5 minutes. Sometimes if you want a really great print, you can wait overnight. I wait while I go have supper, do the laundry, whatever. Just don't be afraid to wait. There's no hurry at all in this part. Okay, so now I've waited the other 5 minutes. Sometimes when we see Gelli plate reels on Instagram, it looks like everything goes really fast, but it doesn't have to go so fast at all. You want to wait to make sure that everything is dry and that you can peel the paint right off the plate. The only time you actually have to go fairly fast is right when the paint is wet and you're putting the paper on. All right, so you've got two nice prints there. That yellow one's a little bit boring, so part of the fun of jelly printing is to intuitively try to see what you can get and carry on. You can see I got that plate pretty clean. It's got a little bit of grunge up there, and I'm going to take it off, and then I'm going to try to add one more element to that yellow print, and we'll see how that works out just for fun. So I think I'm going to choose to use the opaque turquoise. That will look nice with it. My plate's clean and ready to go. Trying to decide what to do. I'll put on the smallest amount of paint. we already know that this paint is very opaque. We only need the tiniest bit. I'm going to show you two colors this time just for fun. So a little bit of turquoise at the bottom and some of that nice transparent blue at the top. I'm sure you've noticed looking at jelly print videos that people usually use more than one color. I'm going to say at this point, that adds to the confusion. When you're learning, why not stick to one or two colors at a time? It's so much easier to get it straight in your head when you have less variables. I've taught a number of jelly printing workshops, and people are very enthusiastic to try this and try that and try this, and they lose their minds, like they don't know what to do. They become so confused because jelly printing is so counterintuitive. It's upside down, it's backwards, it's acrylic paint, it's not ink. It dries, it doesn't dry, it's a peel, it's a print. You really need to learn how to do it. And the more you control the variables, the easier it is to learn and take your time. Another thing that helps is keeping notes. So I will sometimes keep notes. When I like something, I'll say, oh, what I did was I put the paint down and then I put a mask on, and then I liked what I saw on the plate, and then I used transparent paint and I lifted it up again. And then the next time I'm jelly printing, I do the same sequence if I want a certain effect, or even just to see what another print will look like when I use the same sequence. And that way I slowly start to learn how it works and gain control of it. So again, this is just a print. This time I'm not waiting for a peel. I'm not trying to lift anything. I'm just printing that turquoise on between those masks, and that's it. See what I get, and that'll be it for today. So this is how I suggest you start. Cut some shapes out of an office folder, get some bond paper, and start slow. There you go. Two really fun prints today, using masking and a few colors. Lovely. Show me yours. Post them on the Facebook group, Learn Jelly Plate Printing.